Good afternoon.
Good
My name
afternoon.
is Tamarra Jenkins with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program at the University of Florida. And I am interviewing today Mrs. Velnita Adeeko. Thank you so much for this time. Ms. Neat, would you go ahead and pronounce your name? State your name for the record.
My name is Velnita Adeeko, but I can be called Neat.
Thank you so much, Ms. Neat, for taking the time out of this day, out of your Sunday, October 11th of 2020, to be interviewed for the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. Now, if you would like, could I ask, please, where and when were you born?
I was born in Leavenworth, Kansas, July 18th, 1941. I am an African American. Both of my parents are, but with a twist. I'm married to a Nigerian, and I lived in Nigeria for 10 years. And I have friends who are double cultured as I am.
Yes, miss.
So I am double cultured, even though I am genetically an African American.
Double culture. That is.
And so I have respect for people who are like me, and I have respect for maybe everybody, but I identify with African American. But when I am with Yoruba people, I am still at home. Even though I don't speak the language, I have a little bit of it.
Yes, ma'am. And do you recall your parents' names and where they were born?
Yes, my father was Howard Stone Sr., and he was born in Easton, Kansas. And my mother is Juanita Showman Stone, and she was born in Leavenworth, Kansas. Easton is a suburb of Leavenworth, so
Okay.
It's roughly the same place.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. And now, do you remember their dates of birth? Did you say the years they were born?
Yes. My dad was born on February 17th, 1915, and my mother was born on July 2nd, 1920.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for that. Now, what about siblings? Do you have any siblings? And do you know that? Could you state their name?
Oh, yes, yes. I'm 79. My brother Howard would have been 81 if he were living, but he's been gone for about 10 years of diabetes. And his name was Howard Lee Stone. And I am after him, Velnita Louise Stone Adeeko. And I've already said I was 1941. And then Doris Jean Stone McKinley came next. And she would be 2 years younger than I. That would put her at 77. And Thomas Raymond Stone is a pastor in Horton, Kansas on an Indian reservation. And he's a year and a half after Doris. And then Marvin Leroy Stone is a retired school teacher in Horton, Kansas. And he's born a year and a half after Thomas. And then Cosetta Marie Stone Foster is deceased for about 5 years. And I think she had some kind of cancer. And then Showman Eugene Stone is 2 years later. You can see that his first name is my mother's maiden name, minus one L, Showman Eugene. And then Sharon Rose Stone Lawson lives in Mississippi, and that's 2 years later. And the last living one is one Marianne Stone Webb, and she lives in Kansas City. But there were 4 stillbirths after that. And somehow we cannot forget to say that they are a part of us.
Yes, ma'am.
3 girls and a boy. And they were all in perfect health, and I couldn't bear to see them buried. My mother was still in the hospital when we had a funeral service for them. They were born 2 years apart, so we would have been a total of 13. And so what I'm telling you is, in the days before birth control was out, people had huge families. We would have been 13 children, but some people had 20 some, because this is a long time ago that we're talking about.
Yes, ma'am, because I was doing that math and I was like, okay, so there were 9 siblings raised together in the house, 13 total, with the unfortunate passing of those 4 at birth. And now you say, are there 7 siblings
Still living?
That still live?
Yes, only 2 of them have passed from illnesses.
Well, that's really a blessing for the family. It's great to hear. Ms. Meade, would you like to share some things about your parents? And yes, ma'am.
Yes. We were a close-knit family, and we didn't have scandals in the family. I love my mom and dad very dearly. Daddy was born at a different time than I was, a different circumstance than mine. His father, we're very, very mixed parentage in our family. One of my daughters, my last born daughter, did some research that went way back, like almost 100 years. And there are many white people in our history. It kind of starts with slavery.
Yes.
When Black women had babies by masters. And so there was a woman named Rainey who was a slave, and she had many children by the slave master. And we found out some names, some surnames. And so my paternal grandfather was of mixed parentage. Oh, and he had very silky hair, and Mom said he could put 2 hands in a rain barrel and wipe his hands up like this on his hand. It was like, actually mine will kind of do that too, because my hair hasn't been pressed. But that was Will Stone. And Will Stone had a white father, I think. And he made his living by trapping, hunting and trapping. And in those days, so if you were half Black, you were Black. If you were 1/8 Black, you were Black. That's the way the world treated you. And if you pretended that you were not Black, you could be killed, and they would call that passing. Oh. So there was Will, who was my grandfather. I never met him. He died, I think, about a few months before I was born. And he was married to Lizzie Simpson, and she came from Georgia. Yes. And Lizzie Simpson could tell you a story about how they came up on a wagon train from the South and settled in Easton, Kansas. Yes. And there were several of them, several brothers and parents. And when they got to Easton, the family split up. And several of my uncles went to St. Paul, Minnesota. So our family is in more than one part of the country. And the white part of the family lived in Weston, Missouri, which was less than 50 miles from where I was raised, and they had absolutely nothing to do with us. And we were told that if you pass through Weston, you better not have a flat tire, because you have to keep moving right through Weston. And all of this is stories that they tell you when you're growing up, don't ever have a flat tire over there. So my grandmother, Lizzie Simpson, was like the Black doctor for the Black part, because you don't live in the same part of town. Okay. Yes, no, you don't. So for the Black people, you have your own doctor. And she was not a qualified doctor in the sense that we would use the word qualified, but she was the person who was an attendant, and she would take care of you and she could help. But we're not talking about salaries.
Oh, so that was not her job, and she did not have a formal education in the medical field?
No, you don't. Daddy got to go to school a little bit. He went through 8th grade, and it was a pride to him. I have one master's degree.
Yes,
I have a couple of children who have 2 masters, but I have one. And so at 79, that's okay. I'm not going to go back now. But Daddy got to 8th grade, and when I was in high school, he would help me do my homework. And when I got to 10th grade, he said, now girl, he called me girl affectionately. I know it sounds funny to you, but he was, girl, he said, now girl, that's as far as I can go. But I got to help you through 10th grade, didn't I? And so he was proud of that, and I was proud of him. Now you asked about my parents, and I told you about my grandparents, but I wanted you to know what they came from, so you could understand them better. So they couldn't get jobs in Daddy's age, in Daddy's time. No, you couldn't get a salaried job. That's why I said that my grandfather was a hunter and trapper, because you don't have to be hired for that. And so, so how do you get money? Well, you don't really get a lot of money. So you plant your food, and they planted food, and you had to be resourceful. In the good weather, you must plan for the bad weather. So
they did very well, it sounds like, because your grandparents were able to allow your father to go to school instead of stay home and help.
But then he had to stop. The reason he only got to 8th grade wasn't because he wasn't a good student. It was because everybody in his family got sick. All the boys got sick. And Daddy was the only person who found some kind of way to make some money. I don't know how he did it at that point, but they had something called a Ccc Camp, and it was a government program for teenager boys, and maybe up to 20 or 21 or 2. And he went to CC Camp, I guess. And he supported the family, and that's why he had to quit school. And he was able to buy a little truck, and he was very proud of the truck. And then his brother wrecked it, and that was the end of the truck. But he loved trucks. And he must have learned something at CC Camp, because after he had married my mother, Daddy is the person who put the plumbing in our house himself. And he's the person who put the gas line in the house. These are things that would not even be legal now for you to do for yourself. But we're talking about a long time ago. Daddy was living when they first got driver's licenses. And
This CC Camp, that's very interesting that they had some type of vocational school.
That's what I'm trying to say. That's why I wish that now, when we have so much unemployment for people, that we could have some government programs. But people say, oh, you know, too big government and all that. When people have a need, then you need to rise to it and let them go build bridges and build roads. But Daddy put in the plumbing in our house and the gas line, and he put the sidewalk in from our house to the out to the sidewalk, and he could fix cars. And so the first job that he had was working for the Leavenworth Bus Company as a mechanic. So he could put a car. When I went to college, I was a day student. We didn't have the money to send me to college, but I did get a merit scholarship, which was a blessing from God. And Daddy would say when I was growing up, both mom and dad loved education, and they didn't have a lot of opportunity. And Daddy would say, girl, you have to be ready when the door opens, because when the door opens and you're not ready, somebody's going to be able to walk through it. So he wanted me to be a good student, and I was an A student, and I've already told you without pride that I did go to college on a scholarship. And I always thought that I might get to go. And when I was in high school, there was a school counselor, but my parents didn't know how to coach me for what to do and how to prepare for college. They just knew that I should do all of the work at school and pay attention. And so that's how I did. But then when I was a high school senior, I didn't know how to do college entrance. I didn't know about the SAT and that kind of thing. Yes. And I remember sitting down one day in a study hall and thinking, and I thought, I think I'll go see Mr. Soph, the school counselor. And he was of Armenian descent. He was an old man, maybe 70, but now that I'm 79, that isn't old. So you understand. But then I thought he was old. So Mr. Soph said, well, what we can do is, it won't be easy for you to get into college here, but you could go to the South and try to go to a school that's all white, and that will be difficult. But is that better for you than not going at all? And I said, ooh, I don't know, but I guess so. I don't know. But then I had a high school senior English teacher. Miss Randolph was very nice, and she recommended me to some Catholic sisters. There's a Catholic women's college in my town it was called Mount St. Scholastica then, but now it merged to be a part of St. Benedict, a companion to St. Benedict's College. That was the male Catholic college in my city, in Atchison. I actually got a scholarship to go to Mount St. Scholastica.
Yes.
And very fine people, very good school. So I didn't go to the South.
Right, Ms. Neat, now come back. Now your teachers, Ms. Randolph and Mr. Soph, he was of Armenian descent, and what was Miss Randolph's nationality?
She was white.
Okay, so at that time, wow, you had the opportunity. You were.
Okay, I went to an all black elementary school.
Yes,
Because when I grew up, we didn't have integration of schools yet. But when I got finished with 6th grade, we got integration. And our black school, and this is a sad thing for us, our black school changed names. Couldn't be Lincoln School anymore once we were integrated. And there was a nearby white school. And so everybody had to go to Martin East.
Wow.
And we had a black principal at our school. That was Ms. Harper, and became Miss Weaver. And they repositioned our black staff, and they gave our principal a 7th grade math class. And that was painful to Black Atchison. You had Black Atchison and White Atchison. There is a street called Division. Can you believe this?
No.
I was grown before I realized why that street was called Division. But my brother, who still lives in Atchison, told me that about a month ago, they changed the name of Division Street to Unity.
Wow.
I was so proud of Atchison for having done that. You know, we have big mistakes that we make, and now we can fix them.
Yes.
If you know what you did wrong, then we can try to do something about it. And so it was a good thing. And I was pleased that they did it. Not angry now that they called it division, but happy that they renamed it. It means they knew what they had done and they wanted to do better.
Yes.
So I think that's good. So our principal got a 7th grade math class.
Yes, ma'am.
And now my 1st grade teacher, her name was Miss Barnes. And having Black Atchison, if you can understand the situation, she was the person who had taught reading to so many people in Atchison. And people felt really bad that they put that woman in a study hall. Because she could teach you how to read, and she could wake up the fires of learning in you so that you loved reading. And so from 7th grade, I was in an integrated school.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
That was junior high school, 7th and 8th grade. And then we still had the system then. I think they called it 7th, 8th, and 9th for junior high. And then 10, 11, and 12 was senior high.
Okay. Yes,
but even though it was integrated, you weren't sure that it was a positive move, because you could raise your hand and not be called on. And you definitely could not run for any kind of a class office like president. No. So you were there. Let's put it like that. You were physically there, but you had to still know how to stay in your lane. And I'm sorry.
So Ms. Nee, how were you able to develop these relationships or earn the respect of your teachers who were white?
Well, now, some of them, I didn't have any Black teachers after I got away from Lincoln. But my brother was a teacher in Atchison, but he's younger than I am. Yes. He's younger. I'm talking about my experience. Some of the teachers were good. And some of the teachers, now, for one semester, we went to Leavenworth. We moved from Atchison to Leavenworth for one semester. And there I had an English teacher. And this still, some things stay in your head for a long time. And it's a long time now. But you think that everything is going on all right between you and your teacher. You're doing your homework, you're paying attention and all that. And then one day she asked me if she could see me after class. So I stayed after class to see what she wanted. And she asked me if I would like to come to her house and do some cleaning. And when I told Daddy, he thought that it was because I was Black that she asked me if I would come and do some cleaning. And so you have different things from different people, but we had very strong family life. Yes. And Daddy could fix anything. Oh, I was going to tell you, when I went to college, I was a day student. I mean, it was a blessing that I got to go. So I didn't have a full ride in the sense that I lived on the dorm.
Okay, yes, ma'am. I was going to ask.
No, I did not. But Daddy got me a car. Now, we didn't have money. You still have to remember the times. We were 9 kids, and the way Daddy made money was to be the janitor at St. Benedict's College, which was the counterpart, the male college for the one that I was going to. Yeah. And so he was the janitor there, and they had some kind of a system where he could fire up some kind of a system that would heat the whole building.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
With coal, steam.
So you're mentioning, so Kansas, you all were in Kansas at the time, And so if you were a day student, you went on campus for your classes, and then you returned home in the evening.
That's right.
Now,
So,
yes.
Daddy he made me a car.
Yes.
He would go to the junk shop and get some old kind of something that didn't work right. And he could put the stuff together, and that's how I went to school. So I had a car.
Yes.
And in those days now, because we're talking in the way back when gasoline would be 13 cents a gallon and all that kind of stuff, and a loaf of bread would be just a few pennies. So he could buy a car from the junk shop for $50. And then he could put stuff together, and I could drive the car. And I would always say, well, Daddy, now I need you to fix my car because something is wrong. And he would fix it because he could do that.
Wow.
And then one day I said, Daddy, would you fix my car? And he said, no, girl, I'll just get you another one.
Well, yes, because he knew he had done pieced it together so much. I guess it was just only so much he could continue doing.
And also it was cheap enough.
Yes, ma'am.
It was cheaper, and he knew how to do it. But so I was a day student.
Okay, so you were the second oldest of your 9 siblings.
Yes, only one.
Were you the first to attend college? What was that?
I was. Yes, and when I attended college, my brother said that he was glad that I had done that because he had never known that somebody in our family would go to college. And after I had gone, yes, there's something about being the first one that makes the younger kids
kind of
rethink their position, I guess.
Yeah, and what they're capable of, their full capabilities, right?
Yes. So after I had gone to college, Tommy and Marvin and Cozy and Chiefy, about 5 of them went on to higher education.
Yes.
And some became teachers, some became pastors' wives. In those days, the only thing that a Black woman could do with higher education was to be a nurse or a school teacher.
Yes, ma'am.
And my mother was a high school graduate. She didn't have the same kind of family that Daddy did. Her mother died when she was 6. And she would tell us that you will have to excuse me for loving you so hard, but all the love that I would have had for a mother, I put it out on you. And so that was the kind of parents I had. And Daddy worked hard, and he was a janitor at St. Benedict. Yes, but I told you he loved the trucks. Yeah. And so he was always getting a loan. With loans with interest.
Yes.
So he could go and get himself another truck.
Oh.
I don't mean he had to. Well, that was the only way I didn't worry about it so much, but I did feel like something was wrong, but it wasn't stressful to me. I was too young to realize that this is not the way to do. So he would always have a truck. And he would do landscaping and hauling on the side with his truck and make extra money, always trying to make ends meet. And he was extremely proud of my mother because she had finished high school and he had gone through 8th grade. But I told you why he hadn't gone further. But they both valued education and wanted us to excel in our studies. And so
now for you all to excel, what do you recall them putting in place to help you all along the way, to alleviate any outside burdens that would distract you all from your academic success? Yes, ma'am.
We had a storefront church, and he did not make money on the church. He paid the rent out of his salary.
Oh, your father?
My father did.
Yes, ma'am.
My father did. And you said, what did they do to help us excel? You had to go to church. That was just, it was a closely knit family, as I told you. And when you had homework, if you said, well, Mama, do I have to go tonight because I have homework? She would say, sit in the back of the church, honey, and do your homework in the back of the church on the back pew. And that way you're going to get something. And she was right, actually. I just published a book. Yes, I did. It's called The Master Plan. And it's a religious book because the seeds of serving the Lord were deeply embedded in us to the point that we didn't mix well. Now, mixing with whites was out of the question. We used to play, now I'm going to forget where I'm going because I'm digressing from a digression, but you play with the neighbors. We lived close to division. And we did actually have a family. There were 2 white families that were fairly near. And the Kilkenny boys used to come and play hide and seek with us until it would get dark at night. And it's really fun after it gets dark because then you can really hide. And this would go on all the time until, now there's going to be a cutoff day. And I've seen it as a parent. There's a cutoff day when people who are not really open will tell your children that you can't play with those black kids anymore. And it happens unexpectedly because you've been this tight. And then suddenly you will never see them again. They won't come to play again. And so that's how that went. But my parents didn't want us to mix with all the other kids that we might have mixed with because they were of a different culture. They were black, but they were not, they did things that we didn't do.
Yes.
And so they didn't let us mix with kids whose standards were different. We actually had some violence in our town. And
is that racial? Or was it racially provoked, or was it actually black on black, you know?
Well, now we had black on black and we had white on black.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes. If you want to talk about black on black, I'll just tell you that there were a couple of murders in my time as a child that were black on black. But the white on black was such that, and this is the kind of talk you hear all the while, and you just take it for truth and govern yourself accordingly. If you go to the hospital, they would say, oh, that's a slaughterhouse. You can go in there with an eye problem and come out dead. And you can go in there with any minor thing. So I'll never go to the hospital. That's the way people talked in front of you.
So the hospitals, were they still segregated, black hospitals and white hospitals?
No, you couldn't mix room.
Oh, but they all could come into the same facility.
Yes.
But you did receive.
Yeah, we didn't have a black house, but we had a black doctor, and you did have to go to the black doctor. And every time my mother would have a baby, it would be Dr. Patton.
Okay.
But then when I was, maybe 14, 15, somewhere around in there, you could go to the white doctors.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I was going somewhere and I
well, you were saying about in your neighborhood, your parents kind of shelter or
yes. So we didn't mix with the whites, and we didn't mix much with the blacks because they were they did a lot of things that we couldn't do.
Yes.
So your socialization was in the family. Wow. For us. There were a few families that were very good, black families.
Yes.
But they better have somebody who's your age.
Oh, right. So you all didn't play with the older kids or the younger kids. It would have to be someone And similar age. Okay, yes, I'm in the age range with you.
Kids would come to our house, though, because we were so many kids that we could make a ball team.
Yes, yes. And I mean, it wasn't a lot of years between you all, because I believe it's about 2 years between.
Except for between Thomas and Doris. No, from Doris to Thomas was 17 months. And from Thomas to Marvin was 17 months.
Oh, yes.
But everybody else was 2 years apart.
So your mother, she was a stay-at-home?
She had to be. There were so many kids, she had to take care of them.
And your father?
Besides, you didn't have, we wouldn't have been able to afford a babysitter.
Right, for her to actually go to work with your father.
And there was no work for her anyway. One time she worked as a maid for maybe 2 months, and she quit because the lady of the house called her by her first name, and she figured that she should have been called Mrs. Stone.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Anita did not play, even in that day. What?
Well, I'm just, when you're a maid, they call you by your first name.
Yes.
And she didn't think that's what she should have called her. But we made it. Daddy would go hunting to get the meat. And he would he was a good shot too. I told you he was somebody that could do everything. And he would go hunting and he would tell Mama, you fix the vegetables and I'll bring home the meat. And then he would say, I got 6 shells, I'll bring you 6 rabbits, like that.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And he would take my brothers with him sometime. And I asked him if I could go. And he said, oh, no, I wouldn't want a girl to see that. To see that, he said, little animals dying, and no. And he wouldn't teach me how to play the guitar. He could play it very well. Because he said it makes your fingers hard, and girls aren't supposed to have hard fingers.
Yes.
He wouldn't teach me how to change a flat, because he said that, no, if you get a flat, you call me and I'll come and change it.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, Daddy, I won't be at home forever. And he said, well, then your husband will change it for you. Yes. So I've never changed a flat.
Wow, Miss Neat, that's amazing. Your father really instilled something in you. You don't have to tinker with vehicles.
Well, I don't know what that is. I think it's better to know how to take care of yourself, and it's better to know how to sweep your own floor than to have somebody sweep it for you. But he just had this idea himself.
Set ways, yes, ma'am. Set ideas for how he wanted his daughters to be raised and brought up. Yes, ma'am. Well, Ms. Nee, if you wouldn't mind, could we transition back to your college years?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you did, you were going on scholarship. Did you have your scholarship for the entire time?
It was a 4-year scholarship, but it was for tuition, and I can't remember if it was books or not. And it was probably tuition and books.
So you had to apply for the scholarship in high school?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
That's right. And, there's a story there, too. Yes. There was a principal at the high school. And just before graduation night, that's when the junior girls would carry oak leaves in a big bough and beautiful, and march down on 2 lines, and the seniors would march through to pomp and circumstance, and it was all just so lovely. And before that night, the principal, and I'm not going to say his name, I know it very well, he called me on the phone and said, Velnita, you've been awarded the Mother Lucy Scholarship for Mount St. Scholastica. And I was, I almost said it. And I said, that's so wonderful. I'm so happy. I mean, this meant all the world to me. You can understand. I'd already been to talk to Mr. Soph, and we'd already had that. And now I'm going to get the scholarship. And he said, but somebody really wants it. And I know her name too. In fact, I was looking through some things today and I saw her picture. from high school. But I said, oh, no, I want it. And he said, well, yeah, but see, if you don't want it, she really wants it. And he tried so hard to talk me out of taking the scholarship so that this other white girl could get it.
No.
And she's a really nice white girl. I mean, she's beautiful, she's nice, and she's friendly. I had no problem with her. The problem was with the principal. That he thought I was not as deserving of it as that other girl was. And she was a little cute girl with a little pixie haircut, little red head and all that. And
oh, wow.
He tried so hard to talk me out of not taking that scholarship.
And because that was going to be like alleviate a possible burden, right? Financial strain on your family. Or it would have really...
I don't think I could have gone from my family's help. I don't think so. I would have had to go to the South.
Now, what were you, and that's pretty scary because you would have...
Well, it was, you know, that I'm the person who still remembers when Ruby Bridges and all of those people were trying to break into white schools, elementary schools, and got hosed down and had to call and dogged too.
Oh, so
and had to, yes, that's in my time. And that's what I was looking at when I was talking to the guidance counselor, that, do you want to go to college this badly? And I thought, well, I guess if you got to do it, you got to do it.
Wow.
But no, I
was bestowed upon you with receiving the scholarship.
The scholarship was a blessing from God. Yes. And to try to tell me that I shouldn't take it was not a good conversation.
Right. It's such a blow. I mean,
no.
It seems like, wow.
It means that you are not as important as the other person.
Yes. Now, what, Ms. Nee, what did you major in?
English.
Oh, you majored in English?
Yes. I majored in English and I minored in Spanish. And then when I came back from Africa, when I came back, I went back to school and got a master's.
Now, so you completed your bachelor's, 4-year bachelor's degree.
Yes.
And now what year is it that you moved out of the country to Africa?
We went in 65 and we came back in 75.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. So you relocated to Africa with who? Are you
with my husband?
Oh, you met your husband in the United States.
I met him in college.
Yes.
He was going to the male counterpart of the female counterpart. And since the name of my college was Mount St. Scholastica, we were called Mounties. And the joke was the Mounties always get their man. But I didn't go after him. But I did marry him, having met him in college. And so we went over there in 65.
And that is after you graduated from college with your bachelor's.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how did your family feel about this move? And what was the reason you guys planned, you are relocated to Africa, returned to?
Because when my husband came here from Africa, he came here for an education. Yeah. In Nigeria at that time, they had an infinite number of qualified students who wanted to go to college and not enough colleges to accommodate them.
Oh, wow.
So many of them would leave the country to go for higher education. And right now, here in Houston, you have an extremely high percentage of college educated, let me put it like this, almost all of the Africans here have college degrees.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's the way to say it. So he came here to go to college, but he came with the expectation that he was going to go back home.
Oh, okay.
And then the clinker was that he meets somebody that he wants to marry, and he actually did marry me, and we stayed here until we had 2 children.
And then in Kansas.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah, we were 1963 graduates, and we didn't go back until 65.
Yes.
And that sounds like 2 years. That sounds like some
Yes,
pretty fast number of children in 2 years. But actually, we had actually had one. And then when we had the second one 2 years later, that's the point at which we left.
Okay, so that was still a new baby.
Yeah, 4 months old. And the reason that my mother had a baby after I had a baby.
Oh, yes.
She
okay.
did. And I was not going to go to Africa. And my mother was, this is a sad story, but I'm going to tell it. She had had 3 stillborns already, and this was the 4th one. And the doctor had told her that one or both of you is going to die in this birth. And I was not about to leave. And before that happened. So my son was born in April, and about 6 or 8 weeks later, maybe less, my brother would have been born. My sister, a sister. And that was sad. And I held the baby. I told you. It was too sad. These are perfectly formed babies.
Full term?
Nothing wrong with the baby. Just cord wrapped around your neck. So Mama asked the doctor when she was 7 months, she said, would you please take my baby? Because I don't want this baby to die again. Not to die again, but this baby again to die. Yes. And they said, no, Miss Stone, the longer you wait, the better the baby's chances are for living. So she lost her baby again.
Wow, the 4th. That was the 4th.
It was sad. Let me tell you, it's sad. And I looked at the baby and it looked like our family. It was just,
wow.
Oh. And they suffocate because the cord wraps around their neck and they wouldn't help her. And I had a good doctor for my baby. And we lived in Kansas City at that time. And I asked the doctor, would he please take my mother's case? And he said, no, because it's too high risk and it would damage my reputation if she died. So he wouldn't help her either. Wow. That's how that went.
So the medical, it wasn't about the health of the patients. They were actually, it sounds like during that time, really concerned with their personal records.
Yes, yes. So he wouldn't take the case. And
that, oh, wow, that is so.
Go back to your question again. I think I've deviated again because you touched a nerve.
Oh, my apologies. I was at this point, we were discussing what was the decision, what was the reason you all decided to relocate to Africa? But
it was because my husband wanted to go back home.
Yes, and now you did delay until your mother delivered the 4th child.
Right. So we thought we were going to live there forever and ever, amen. And so we bought a house. Well, we were building a house.
Yes.
I made myself a part of the culture.
Were you able to learn it fully, or did you use it?
Somewhat, because you know how you price food in an open market? Have you heard of that?
Like
you buy, if you bought food outside,
yes,
outdoors, I mean, and the market women are there with their foods and other wares. If they say the price is 3X, you might try to see if you can pay 1X. And then they'll say, no, 2X last. And you go back and forth. The way they do in Mexico, they do that in Nigeria.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
So I could handle myself well in the market.
Yeah, okay, with negotiating. Yes.
Yes, and some other things,
yes,
but not everything.
Okay.
I thought I was going to be there until I was dead.
Yes.
So I was okay with that. And we mixed well. As I told you, I made friends. And even here in Houston, I've made friends who can share both parts of my life, yes, both parts of my experiences, I'll say. And
now,
then my husband got a an offer for a transfer after we had been there for 10 years. And he said, well, I can go to another branch of the company, or they said that they could relocate me in Houston. And I said, let's go for 2 years. Let's go there and I'll put the kids in school and it'll be a holiday for us, a 2-year holiday.
Yeah.
So we left all of our furniture and we left our house and we stored things,
Yes.
valuable letters from my parents and all that. And we never went back. And we would periodically sit down and talk about when do we want to go back? And then I would say, well, the kids are really doing well in school. And it was hard to get into good schools over there.
Okay.
I told you that part. So we would say, well, we'll reconsider it later.
Yes.
And by the time you do that too many times, you find out that you have aged.
Time is fast.
And your children have aged. So we've been here now since 75, and that's about 45 years,
Yes.
25 and 20. Yeah, 25 to finish out 2000.
So Miss Nee, before you all moved to Nigeria, where were you all living? And what was the racial, feel? How was everything going for you all then?
Well,
Work-wise.
we had low-paying jobs, and I had never voted. How old was I in 75? I think I was around 24. But you see, people in our family didn't vote. You could get in trouble voting. You don't go down someplace and vote. I told you that you had to stay in your place if you didn't want trouble. There was a man, they called him Jack of Diamonds. I think he was a gambler. And that man went to a highway, you don't want to really call it a restaurant, but a fast foods. Let's call it a fast foods place. And you could call it a restaurant in that way. And he ordered a sandwich, and he was black.
Yes.
And it was in my early childhood, not too early, but put me at 9, right in there. And I told you, black people talked all the time. They just talk and tell you stories. And Jack of Diamonds died. And the story that circulated was that they had put ground up glass in his hamburger.
What?
So you learned how to stay in your place.
And where to go. Like you figure out where you are accepted.
That's right. And then when my husband came and we would date and he wanted to take me someplace, he wanted to take me to Thompson's restaurant. And Thompson's restaurant was a nice restaurant. It was the nicest restaurant in town. And he said he wanted to take me to the restaurant. And I said, oh, no, you can't do that. So I had to teach him racism. You get it now? I had to teach him. And I said, no, we can't do that. And St. Benedict's was not racist. It was run by whites, but they were Catholics, and they did not believe in racism. Yes. And St. Benedict's was instrumental in making Atchison more open. And it was hard for my husband to understand. And we actually went to Thompson's, and they served us.
Really?
They served us. But when I was a freshman in high school, I was in a biology class, and we had a really nice teacher too, and he was white. I told you we didn't have any black teachers in high school.
Yes.
You go from an all-black school to an all-white school, and you call that integration because you have black kids, but you don't have black faculty. No. So the class openly planned, with the guidance of the biology teacher, what the field trip was going to be like. And they said, oh, we're going to go to Poochie's in Kansas City. It's a really high-class restaurant. And I'm a member of the class, and I didn't have anything to say. I don't know Poochie's from anything else. So they decided they were going to go to Poochie's, and we were going to go for an academic field trip. So we rode there in, I think, the teacher's car. And when we got to Poochie's, a black woman, not a white woman, but a black woman, came to me and told me that I couldn't eat there and I would have to leave. And so the white kids stayed, but there was a Jewish person there. And I don't know if I can say his name, but it was a positive thing. And I was so pleased with him. That was Ronnie Feldman. Oh, yeah. And the biology teacher was Mr. Christ. And Ronnie Feldman got up and walked out with me and with Mr. Christ. Oh, wow. And they didn't ask Ronnie to leave, but he got up and left. Yes. Because he realized that he was going to share in my having to leave.
Yes, and the discrimination.
And the teacher left too. And the rest of the kids stayed.
So now, why would the teacher not be aware of these restrictions that are in place?
I think like the George Floyd thing, as shocking as it is to Black people, I think that there are good white people who don't know what it's like to be discriminated against. They haven't felt it, but I think that some of the Jewish people might have, which is why I think Ronnie left. Yes. But you could still be of whatever race and not have the sympathy.
Yes,
you could still. And I don't want to discredit him in any way for what he did and say, well, because he felt. I think he was just a good person.
Yes, who wanted to stand in solidarity beside who he obviously deemed you to be, Miss Mead, a good peer of his.
But the teacher could have behaved otherwise also.
You're right.
And he could have stayed with him and given me the key to the car or told me where I could go eat. Yes. But he didn't. He walked out too. But things happen. See, when it was different. Now it's not so good, but it's still different from there in a way. Oh. We had a store called Woolworths. Yes. And have you heard of it?
Yes, ma'am. Woolworths seemed to have been like the prestige store.
No. Woolworths was, well, in our town. I don't want to say no to you because you know what you're talking about. But in our town, Woolworths was not a prestige store. We called it the dime store. And Kresge's, but Woolworths preceded Woolco, which became a department store. It expanded later. And Kresge's preceded Kmart.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so Kresge's was called the dollar store, and Woolworths was called the dime store. Now, they didn't sell things for a dime, but little nickel dime kinds of things you could buy there.
Okay.
Okay. Now, they had a lunch counter there. And that's the part that I'm trying to tell you about.
Yes.
You could go there and sit down and order something, but I couldn't. But that's what the lunch counter was for. And because I knew that I would not be allowed to go to the lunch counter and order something, I didn't like to purchase anything that was close to the lunch counter because I was so indoctrinated to my limitations that I didn't want anybody to think that I was about to sit down. So I didn't want to make a purchase that was near the lunch counter. And that's the damage that can be done to people when you've held them down and taught them what they can't do for no good reason. But you learn how to stay in your lane. And so that was the extent to which it went. If I were walking down, I can remember walking down a sidewalk, and then if a white person approaches me on the same walk from the opposite direction, I would
Yes.
go to the street so you could have it.
As a lady, I know that.
No, as a child.
Oh, as a child.
Yes. You knew how to stay in your place, and that way you didn't get in trouble, you didn't get killed.
Okay, yes, yes. So
People could burn your car down if you bought a car, because Black people shouldn't have a car. So if you dared to find a way to get one, then maybe you won't be able to keep it.
Oh, that's it.
And my mother showed me when I was in Leavenworth. That's where I was born, but not raised. But she showed me a tree on Spruce Street in Leavenworth. And she said, honey, you see that tree? That's where they used to lynch people. My mama said that to me.
Wow. So the lynching tree was
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So you don't want to sit down at the lunch counter.
Yes.
Now, I know that somebody has to have good trouble, as John Lewis said. There's good trouble and bad trouble. But you would be afraid of the good trouble because the reaction was so definite that
Yes.
you tried to see if you could.
Wow. Just avoid it, I guess.
But now my daughter tells me that somebody has to make things better. Somebody has to change things. And I say, in my time, we didn't grow up like that, trying to change things. We tried to see if we could stay alive.
Wow.
And now we're trying to see if we can make things better. And it's two different generations.
Yes, ma'am.
That's probably what it is. And I think you can go so far in a generation. For example, there are many things that parents can do, and then there are other things that their children can do by standing on their shoulders.
Oh, yes. Yes, like, so the limitations of what that first generation could do, and then the next generation coming up could just feed
That's
off
what
of
it
that.
looks like.
Yes.
Also, my children used to tell me that there is no racism. Why do I think this and why do I think that? And of course I vote. I was an early voter this year. I've already voted.
Yes.
But what I'm trying to say is my parents didn't vote, but I did. So I went farther than they did. I have voted in every presidential election since I've been back, but you go so far in a mind context, and then you can go a little bit farther next time. I don't know why that is, but I think it's kind of true.
Yes, ma'am. It does sound, it makes a lot of sense, but I guess it's not really a limitation, but just as far
when the
as
limitations are removed, you've still got fears.
Yes. Now, with the relocation to Nigeria, Ms. Neat, what was the racial tensions you experienced there?
You don't call it racial tensions there. You call it tribalism.
Tribalism.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing, but they call it tribalism.
Okay.
And everybody has a tribe, and my husband has a tribe, but we don't have feelings that are hostile to other tribes. But a lot of people don't want you to marry outside your tribe.
Oh.
So my husband jumps up and marries an African-American person. And there are people who wouldn't have liked that, but his family was good.
Okay.
And so I had God with me again. He had a mother who took me as her daughter. She's not living anymore.
Okay.
But I made it my business to go all the way back for her funeral.
Yes.
She tried to teach me how to do things in a loving way, not, oh, that's not how you do it. That's not how she was at all. She took me as a daughter. They like to make outfits that are made of the same cloth for high occasions, and that's called ashoebi, same cloth, and it looks good. It does. And she did that one time and brought a sewed outfit for me. You have things made for you. You can buy them ready-made, but mostly you get them made by a tailor. And she brought it to me and said, Mama Remy, oh, I told you my name is Neat, but my first daughter is Remy. So the dignity with being a parent is that I am Mama Remy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's
Mama, and they say the name of the child?
That the firstborn, yes.
Yes.
So she would say, Mama Remy, I was making this for all of my daughters, and so here is yours. And I thought, aha, so I'm your daughter.
Yes. Oh, that is beautiful.
Oh, yeah. And when I had one child in Nigeria, that was Lisa, whom you saw setting up the Zoom. I said, well, Mama, I'm supposed to have my baby on the 23rd of October. And could you come over and stay with Remy and Femi? And she said, you know, I will come, but you don't know the day it's going to happen exactly. And I said, I know the day. So, so I had my baby on that day.
Wow.
But she came and took care of the kids, you know. She didn't say, you're not a Yoruba lady, and I'm not coming. Why did my son have to go and marry somebody from overseas? That's not who she was.
She accepted you with open arms and helped you.
And she taught me how to cook the dishes.
Yes.
Yeah, and how to bargain in the market so that I wouldn't get cheated. Okay. And how to dress, how to do the booba and wrapper.
Is that the head wrap?
No, the booba is the blouse part of the woman's outfit, and the wrapper is the bottom part.
Yes. Oh, so those are two
pieces. Yeah.
But it's the same cloth. I've actually never known that.
Yes, two pieces.
Two pieces.
The head tie is more complicated. Oh, wow. I'm not really great with head ties. I have to ask somebody to help me. Okay. But she was good. You know, she made herself my mom. And my husband's father had passed while he was here in college. Wow. And when we went there, his uncle, the brother to his mother, met us at the airport and hugged me and said, I have come in the place of your father. And he made himself a father and a grandfather to us.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Not everybody has the same story.
Right, because his family was exceptional.
Yeah, they were exceptional. Some people didn't have that kind of story.
Right, with being an outsider brought into their tribes.
Yeah. In fact, that man, Papa Reverend, he was such a dear person to me. He had a big church, not a storefront church like my dad had, but a big rich people's church in Lagos, in Tinubu. That's a section of Lagos. Lagos is a capital. It was the capital city, and I dedicated my book to him because he was so precious. And after church, I went over to his church for our service, and he announced to all of those Yoruba-speaking rich people, my daughter is here today, and so this service will be conducted in English.
Whoa.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. So, yeah, they were a good family to me. But the tribes are not all close.
Okay. Now, so Miss Nee, with you, were you at home? Did you stay at home to raise the kids, or did you pick up a
No,
job?
no. I taught school at the American International School. So
Oh,
I was teaching white children when I was in Africa.
what?
But
And
but here's the kicker. My children were students at the white school because they would give a scholarship to one more African child every year. And so both of my children who were old enough to go to school went there as Africans,
yes.
even though I was a teacher there.
Oh wow. So they were trying to integrate their schools, but they were doing it gradually. Is that what you say? Why they gave out one additional
I don't
scholarship?
think they were really trying to integrate it because it was too costly, and the school was funded by USAID and USIS and American Embassy and the oil companies. Shell and Exxon and people like that were still there, very prominent, because Nigeria was an oil producing country.
Okay.
So the presence of the oil people was very much seen. And so they funded the school,
That's
that heavily subsidized.
yes.
So it was really to keep their children, the American children who were there from businesses and from the American government. It was to keep those children with the parents in a totally American school.
Oh, it was. So there was no tribal conflicts. I was going to ask, did any of that come up amongst the school age kids? But this was American students, white American.
Almost everybody there was white, except for the kids who were on scholarship, probably.
Yes. And your children had the opportunity to attend this school as well.
Both of them got merit scholarships.
And the name of that school was the
American International School.
International School.
Yeah, it was run by Tacoma, Washington.
Yes. So how many years were you there, and what age group did you teach?
I taught second grade and first grade sometimes, either one. And I liked it, and it was good.
Oh.
It was really good. And I liked the kids, and I was glad that my kids went there.
Yes.
But that's what I did.
Now, were you involved, or were you aware of some of the political tensions in Nigeria, in Africa at the time?
We had a coup. We had a coup d'etat. You know what that is? An overthrow of the government.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I was there for the coup. It was the first coup that they had, and the military took over the government. And I have a daughter who asked me how long ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, Mom, what was it like to live under a dictator? And I told her, same thing I told you, you stay in your lane.
Yes. Yes.
You don't make trouble, but some people were actually killed by firing squad, and the public was invited to come.
No.
Now, you better believe I wouldn't show up at a place like that, but it did happen. Yeah. And they would go to the bar beach, because Lagos is, Lagos is a mispronunciation of Lagos, and Lagos in Spanish means lakes.
Yes, okay.
But Nigeria was a colony of Britain.
Yes.
Okay. And so when they came, if you say Lagos, well, they would say it was Lagos. And so everybody calls it Lagos now.
Okay.
But it has lakes, and it has bridges that connect some islands to the mainland. they have a lot of freeways that have been built since we've left.
Okay.
And
so those areas. So when you all return for your mother-in-law's
funeral, her funeral.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, that's when you all were able to notice a lot of the developments. Okay, yes, ma'am. And do you all, does your husband have any siblings who remained in Africa?
He has 2 sisters who are there, and he has 1 brother who is here.
Okay. And
there are only 4 of them left out of 7 because we are older people now. My husband is 83, so that gives him just a few years of age than mine.
Could you state his name? I don't believe I asked you to state your husband.
His name is Michael Olufemi. That means God loves me. That's a Yoruba name.
Yes.
And so my son is not a junior, but I didn't like the junior part. And I said I wanted to name him after my husband. So my son is the 2nd. And we call my son Femi, but we don't call him that publicly because if you look at the female roots, it looks like a feminine for Femi. But in Yoruba, it means God loves me, Olufemi. So my husband is Michael Olufemi Adeeko.
Would you like to spell his name? Because this will be... It's
O-L-U. You can spell Michael. You don't want me to spell that.
Yes.
Olufemi is O-L-U-F-E-M-I.
Yes.
Olu is the short of Olua, and the Fe is from Ife is love, and the M-I, me, is pretty easy to see. Olufemi, God loves me.
Oh, yes.
It's a common name.
Oh, in Nigeria or in Africa. Oh.
Yes, in Yoruba land.
Yoruba, yes. Okay. Well, that's really nice to hear that your son, you were able to. And how many kids did you have, Ms. Nee?
4, and they're all living.
4 kids, all living. And so would you like to briefly share about your children? You discussed the 2 born in the U.S. Yes.
The first 2 were born in the U.S., as I told you. 2 years later, we had the 2nd one, but as soon as he was born, we left. So the first one is Oluremi, Theresa Oluremi Adeeko, and her last name is Enobakare because she's married. She has grown children. She lives in California. Yes. And she has a master's degree. All of my children are college educated and they're all homeowners. Remy is 56. Yes. I told you I was old. Femi lives in Houston and he's married and Remy married a Nigerian.
Okay, her last name. I was gonna ask you.
Yeah, she married a Nigerian, but he's been naturalized for buku years.
And how did she meet her husband?
Well, there was a Christian fellowship. I told you that we were strong Christians, and so there was an African Christian fellowship meeting, and she went to Columbus, Texas. And she was singing she was a featured singer. And and Eddie saw me there and he struck up a conversation with me that went on for 15, 20 minutes. And I thought, I wonder what this man is bothering with me for so long. And he was trying to get his foot in the door because he wanted to meet Remy. But that's how they met.
Oh, that's beautiful. You must have heard
Remy had 3 kids, and all of her 3 kids are college educated, except for the last one who is in college now. Okay. She's a junior in college.
And they are in California, Remy and her family.
Mm-hmm. And Remy's 2nd child made the New York Times bestseller list.
Oh,
Yes,
oh,
she did. Yes,
you're
she
following
did.
in your granddaughter's footsteps.
My granddaughter.
Author.
Well, she passed
Yes.
me because my book hasn't made it yet.
Yes, yes.
But
Wow.
that's Remy in California.
Okay.
And my son married an African-American lady,
Yes, ma'am.
and he has 2 daughters. And the oldest one is a junior at University of Texas, and the younger one is a high school senior. And both of them are strong students also.
Yes.
And then my third child is the one who helped set up this meeting.
Okay.
And she's a Harvard graduate.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, she is. And she lives in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And the last one is Anita Cook. Actually, Anita Cook is the one who got me together with you.
Oh, okay. Lisa helped you set up the Zoom, and Anita is who contacted the program.
Anita is the last born.
Yes.
And Anita has a master's also. No, she has 2 masters.
Wow.
They passed there. See, I told you that the next generation can go farther.
Yes.
I don't have 2 masters, but
Well, you started them off with the first. Yes, ma'am.
But I have some certifications. When I got my master's, I got Texas Teaching Certificate
Yes.
and ESL.
Yes, for the non-English.
English. That's what I did when I was, I did that for many years. Taught and the school's ESL person who tests everybody and makes sure that we're in state compliance and everything.
Okay.
That's the 4.
Okay, so does Lisa and Anita?
Does she do what?
Do they have kids who are following in the footsteps of college careers?
Ha! Let me tell you. First of all, I told you that Remy has 3 children,
Yes.
and the first 2 are college educated, except that one of them is a junior already, not out.
Yes.
Because she wasn't old enough. And then, let me tell you, she's 17 years old and she's a junior.
In college?
I'm telling you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then for Michael, he had one of his kids is a junior in college and the other one is a high school senior.
Yes.
So then the third one is Lisa, and Lisa is not married and she has no child.
Okay, yes. Now
And
she has degrees. She has the 2 master's degrees.
No.
Okay, yes.
That's Anita.
Yes.
Anita is the one that contacted you.
Yes.
She's
Okay.
the one with 2 masters. Anita's husband is white.
Okay. Oh, wow.
He is exemplary. He is so loving. In Nigeria, if you're a Yoruba tribe, the way that you greet your elders with respect is to put your knee down. And I said when I was there to children, I don't want you to do that to me, because in the Yoruba culture, they're not saying you're God, but because I was raised a different way, I said, I don't want you to bend your knee to me.
Okay.
So when you come into the house, you can hug me. And Brandon will hug you every time he comes in and when he's leaving. He is so precious. He can speak Yoruba better than I can.
Oh, wow. Oh, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Very
So
beautiful.
he looks white on the outside, but what he is family. He's my son. He's my son.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So that tells you everybody. Didn't I? Oh no, I didn't tell you about Anita and Brandon's children.
Right. Yes.
Their first 2. The first one is Aiden, and Aiden is 19, and he is a junior at MIT. Now,
Yeah.
MIT doesn't take many people. Massachusetts, yeah, in Massachusetts.
Oh, they moved.
Yeah.
So you went so far.
No,
You guys do
no,
not-
they're online now.
Okay.
This is COVID-19.
Yes. Okay. But you guys do not, and it seems like that really stemmed from you, Ms. Neat. you guys are not going to restrict or shut down opportunities because you have to be moved out of your comfort zone, it sounds like.
No, he has lived on campus for 2 years.
Yes.
The only reason that he's a day student living in Houston is because of COVID-19.
Okay.
But you have to have some smarts to get into that school. And then the second child they have is Noah. And Noah also was admitted to an Ivy League school. And Noah is 17, and he's a freshman at the University of Pennsylvania.
Really?
But Noah has to be online too, because University of Pennsylvania is not doing online, brick and mortar classes right now.
Yes, ma'am.
And the third and fourth children are adopted.
Yeah. Oh, wow. They've been able to adopt as well as raise their kids.
That's right. So that makes them have 4. They have 2 that they had, and then they adopted a girl and then a boy.
Wow. Oh, wow.
I told you that I was homeschooling a grandson.
Yes.
Well, the young boy is the one that I'm homeschooling. That's Kai.
Really? Oh, that is great. Now, what grade is he in?
He's a 4th grader.
A 4th grader.
And Shai is a 7th grader.
Oh, that is beautiful.
So everybody in the family there at their house is working online or going to school online.
Yes. Oh, that is actually really nice. That's beautiful. A beautiful family makeup you have. So Remy is in California, but everyone else resides in Texas.
That's
with
right.
You are. Oh, that's even better. That's great to hear. Mm-hmm.
Remy's been in California for, going on to 30 years.
So, oh wow, that's a long time.
I think she got married in about 88. 12. Yeah, well, yeah, that's more than 30 years she's been there. 32.
Yes, ma'am. Miss Neat, when you all relocated back to the States, had you already had Anita?
No. I had her here in Houston.
Okay.
She came back with 3 kids.
Oh, yes. Okay. 3
Lisa was only 3 years old
when you all moved back for the 2-year vacation that is now turned into a 45.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yes.
The 2-year vacation.
Yes. Okay. So we're doing that. What did you, when you guys moved back, what did your husband and yourself do? Well, you all moved for his job, relocated for his job. What did you return and begin doing?
Well, immediately I started on my master's. And started teaching here in Houston. So I have put in a lot of years in teaching here in Houston.
Yes.
So I taught in both Lagos and Houston.
Wow. And so, okay, your years in Houston of teaching, was it still with the in the elementary grades?
Yes, because my teaching certificate is for elementary.
Yes.
It's kindergarten through 8th grade. But I have taught college. I've taught for Harris County Department of Education.
Yes.
For I taught for them, and I taught for Houston Community College, and I taught for Latorno College. Yeah.
When did you obtain your master's? Is that when you were able to begin teaching the college courses?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, before I started teaching the college courses. Yeah.
Oh, you received your master's and then you were able to begin teaching the college courses. Yes.
But I did that moonlighting. I was still teaching in the daytime.
And studying and working on your master's degree?
Actually, I got the master's very fast. When we came back in the summer of 75, and I started school immediately because I wanted to teach. I wanted to get a
kids, right? What was that like? How were you able to continue you held a full-time job, teaching job?
Because Remy was 13, and I went to school at night when I first started in the summers. And my husband was working in the day, and Remy was going to school in the day. And so at night, I could go to college class.
Yes, yes. Okay.
And I put Lisa in a school for little kids, like little 3-year-olds.
Oh, like a daycare.
In the
Yes,
daycare.
a daycare.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, actually, it was a school.
Oh.
I figured if I was going to pay money, I wanted them to teach somebody something.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. That's very wise. Very wise.
So when I was gone at night, then I used my husband and my oldest daughter
Okay.
to help with Lisa.
Yes, that makes sense.
Now, it happened that I gave birth to Anita at the same time that I got my master's degree.
Really?
Yeah.
Miss Me. Oh wow. So okay, you know you're expecting, you know you're pregnant, but you didn't pause with pursuing the master's degree. You continue.
I considered dropping out of the master's degree when I found out I was pregnant. But then I said, hey, you know what? I'm a married woman. I got a right to have my baby. Yes. And I don't have to drop out of school to have my baby. And so I kept going to school. And then when it was time to march, that's when I backed out and I said, I'll march next semester. So I had actually earned the degree before I marched. And I marched in the following semester.
Okay. Oh, wow. That is beautiful. After you had delivered.
That's right.
Okay.
So I have a picture of me in my cap and gown holding Anita.
Oh, that is beautiful. You should share that with us. And family photos also, because if we use this to compile some type of production piece, we will be able to incorporate some of the family images. So that's really great to hear. So now, Miss Nee, if you wouldn't mind, I would like to, if you wouldn't mind, we could transition over and just discuss, just the way the comparing the earlier times with current times and the issues going on. And it's amazing because you've referenced so many current events throughout this interview, of you sharing your life story. What would you say about, what would your opinions, if you have one, on the current times? And like you're saying, your parents, as well as others, instill things in you all. You don't vote, you stay in your lane. And then you've pointed out, as generations come, they'll advance and they'll do more. How do you feel now with the current issues that are?
I would have said that we are so much farther along, but now that many fears have been sown into us again, that had already pretty much been removed. My daughter was saying to me, one of my daughters, a white friend very beautifully said, would you like me to go to the polls with you? And my daughter said, that is so sweet of you to say that. But I just never saw myself as somebody who couldn't stand on my own feet and go where I wanted to go without somebody to back me up. Mm-hmm. And we have come to a turn. Yes. And fear has been sown to the point that people want to make you feel like you're a target. And you didn't feel like you were a target before. So if I were going to say, how would I compare the times? I would say, I think that recently we have I'm very proud of the white people who stand for justice and equality. But there is another segment of who we are that is not like those good people. They're not like my son-in-law. And they have made you feel like there are too many Black men getting shot. I mean, it's just, it can't go unsaid. It's terrible. There's too much of it. And my daughter has a white husband. At least he looks white. And that means that her son is half Black. And they don't have very much color, but they got a little bit. And she doesn't want her son to get shot. And she didn't feel like that before. She felt like, well, you know, nobody's about to get shot. But now, when people are very much making public that both sides are good, then it makes you feel like, are people being given license? Are people being excused for injustice? And you don't want to be the one. And I don't know if some of this has to be cut out, but it's bad to instill fear in people who hadn't known it. And I never felt insecure if I went out. Now I don't buy my groceries in the store, but it's not because I'm Black. It's because of COVID-19. We go to curbside. But this is a difficult time. Well, I'm sorry, but it is a difficult time.
What about Femi and Remy's sons? They are older, correct? Remy, yes, but Femi, your son, but Remy and her kids, because Femi only has 2 daughters. So not his kids, but what
about him?
Right.
What about Fem? Femi is a Black man. And I bought a Sleep Number bed 3 months ago. And I was going to go to Conroe to get it. And I don't drive on the freeway anymore. I don't feel comfortable, not because of troubles, but because it's too fast for me now. And Femi was going to go and take me to get the bed. I was going to buy it used. It was going to cost me half as much to buy it used. And Femi was going to take me. And then he said, oh, it's in Conroe? Oh, I can't go to Conroe because Black people don't go to Conroe. And
3 weeks ago?
3 months ago. So I bought a new one for twice as much. And I said, I'm not going to ask you to put yourself at risk. It was and I don't know, I probably shouldn't say that name of the city, but we can cut it out. But so I bought the bed. So I mean, it's not comfortable for Black males, and I would say Black males, but don't forget Breonna Taylor.
Oh, correct.
Don't forget Breonna Taylor, and don't forget Sandra Bland. Sandra Bland was right up there in Prairie View, a little college town right up from where I live. I live in Houston. Sandra Bland, the policeman told her that she had a broken taillight. And she stood up to him and told him, oh no, she doesn't have any broken taillight. And he tased her, and then they found her hanging dead in the cell.
In their custody.
And we're supposed to think that she killed herself. But she had just been hired in the faculty of the college. Just been hired. That woman her family said she was very pleased to get that job. Not about to kill herself. They said, no, don't believe that Sandra killed herself.
Now, Miss Neat, what about that? Going back to when your mother, your father, and you all were there, and your mother points out, this is a lynching tree. No one is speaking about the atrocities, and no one is being brought to justice for them. And with the current situations, The
They're not
same
being
thing
brought
is
to justice
right,
either.
and it's public. So I mean that's a tragedy in and of itself that the country is failing, you know, their citizens by not holding everyone to the same standards.
A man on the internet I saw yesterday said, some of this stuff I don't want to be public because, yeah, but that man said, the interviewer said, what do you make of stand by and stand your ground or stand something? There were two meanings for stand. And he said, I'll tell you what that means. That means we just waiting for our orders. And yeah, and he said, and then if a certain person loses, there will be rioting. And if that same person loses, there will be civil war. Now you tell me why people are not so comfortable to go to another little town that's
I was gonna say, like,
that's got a history. I'm sorry.
Well, Miss Neat, with what your son said about that one town, is that something that's kind of known throughout? Is it like the new learning for Blacks in your state of the areas to steer clear of?
I don't know. The only thing I can say is, as I told you, when I was a child, Black people talk to each other. And when something happens, they'll tell you. And I know that he heard something. And I know that he knows something. And so we govern ourselves accordingly.
Yes.
And some people don't believe you should have to stay in your lane. And if you want to put it in a certain way, you can say, well, you shouldn't have to. On the other hand, if you're ready to die for the cause, you could say, well, somebody's got to die for it. And then on the other hand, what if you have little children who need you to take care of them? And there's two ways to look at these things. I told you I was old. And the way I grew up is you keep the peace. But if everybody kept the peace, then there wouldn't be a lot of progress. And if everybody worked for progress, we'd have a whole lot of people dead. And you have to look at it and say what you believe. I think that there's merit on both sides of the argument.
Yes, ma'am.
And I am personally too old to go out and march.
Yes.
But I have trouble walking. My walking is very limited, but I don't blame the people who do, and I don't blame the people who don't.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that's pretty powerful. Now, I would like to say, Ms. Nee, I actually have a few questions that are going to veer off to a different topic. But at this moment, I would like to ask you, are there any things you would like to add? You know, not on your political perspective, but just on any stories or recollection memories that have come up of you and your siblings, you with your mother, or I mean, anything like that you could think of, any memorable moments with you and raising the kids, like in Africa, like in Nigeria, your two oldest kids there. Anything that occurred with them?
You mean, how did they fit?
Well, yes, that even back in Nigeria, they were pretty young, right?
Actually, my oldest daughter was 2 when we went there. I told you.
Yes,
and my son was 4 months. And when we came back, my oldest daughter was 12 and my son was 10. And Lisa was born there and she was 3 when we came back. And
well, what about educational differences, the quality of education? you actually made mention with your husband that so many students are eager to go to college, but there are not enough colleges because everyone they could all be admitted in, but it's no space for them.
In the course of time that we were there, I didn't have any children who were of college age. Remy was 12 when we came back, but to get into schools, they have free schools, and they have British schools and American school and Chinese school and French schools. Yeah.
Really?
And they'll cost a whole lot of money. And I told you that my children went to the American International School on scholarship. But I did teach at St. Saviour's 1 year, a half a year.
Yes.
And I taught at a Nigerian school for half a year. Wait a minute.
Oh.
St. Saviour's.
Now, what was that school? What was the makeup for that school?
Wait, I'm thinking if I taught at a Nigerian school or not. Yes, Port Harcourt Primary. I taught second grade.
So was St. Saviour's the free school?
No, that was British.
Oh, that was the British school.
Yes. And it was a good school, and I liked it. In fact, I was the art teacher.
Yes.
There's students that still contact me. And I remember, she says, I remember that pretty dress you wore. And we went out to eat too, here in Houston. Sometimes people come, and American International School has had reunions. My face keeps coming out of the square, the rectangle. We've had reunions for American International School. Yes. Lagos is not the only place where it's located. It's located in different parts of the world. And we had a very nice lunch, and the school paid for it. And a lot of people came. You know, when white people have been to American International School in Lagos, they value it. Oh. They value the experience, and they want to get together and talk about it. And there were some people that my oldest daughter knew when she was a student there who are still in touch with her. And one of these young ladies, because we're talking a long time ago now, so they wouldn't just be young ladies now. My daughter is 56. She learned how to speak broken English. Broken English is a kind of pidgin English for illiterates who haven't been to school. Yes. And this girl learned English from the house help. Now, expatriates, that's what they call the foreigners. The expatriates have servants. And so we had servants too, but my relationship to the servants was respectful, because there but for the grace of God go I. And I saw them as people who had to be respected. If you don't like what the servant is doing, then you can talk to them about it. And if worse comes to absolute worst, you can let them go. But you don't have to be rude. So this girl learned English from the house help.
Really?
And yes, and so she spoke broken English. Can you imagine? I mean, she was an expatriate, and that was the English that she spoke.
Okay, yes, that
I don't even understand all the broken English. It can get deep, you know.
Now, why would she not be able to learn English, just pursue it and get taught English? Why would she
learned? because her parents, I guess, weren't speaking English, and the English that she learned was from them.
Yes. Yes. Okay. And that's one of Remy's, that would have been one of Remy's classmates.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yes.
But Remy keeps friends with people that she went to school with. And I don't, because I went to school in a different time.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
And
in the relocation, right?
I don't go to my high school reunions.
Oh.
Because if you didn't speak to me then I haven't got anything to pick up on with you. I mean, we don't have memories that we shared.
Yes.
But if I met you now, fresh, we could make friends. Okay. But it wouldn't be built upon the past, because there was no past. So my brother would go.
Okay, he was more involved in school. We interacted with more.
A later time, things change. Things change. Even since my time, things have changed.
Yes, 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 ma'am.
I told you they just got their renaming the street.
I know. And it was so obvious then, but nowadays
it wasn't to me. I just thought, oh, that's Division Street. I didn't think about what it was dividing until I was grown. And then one day I said, you know what?
Some people stayed on this side and others stayed on that side.
And you don't buy a house on the other side. When we wanted to buy this house that we live in, we've been here since 77 in the same house.
Yes.
I had moved enough that I said, I'm through moving. So when we got this house, I liked the house. You can see the kitchen behind me, but actually I'm in the den because there's not a full wall across the back. Oh. And I really liked that. I thought, well, it's not fair for women to go to the kitchen and cook and be isolated. So I wanted the den and the kitchen to be together. That black thing you see in the background is full of magnets from all over the world. And every time somebody in my family goes someplace, they have to, and they say, what do you want? I say, a magnet. And I say, you want, oh, yeah. So I've got Greece and Rome and all that. But anyway, when we wanted to buy this house, we didn't realize that it was redlined. It's a white neighborhood. This is a white neighborhood. And I wanted the house, and a white realtor was showing us houses. But I was teaching school all day, and you got to do lesson plans, and you have to mark papers and all that. And that's time consuming on your home time. So when we wanted to buy a house, I was tired. And I thought, we've looked and looked and looked at houses, and I've seen the one I want, and it was this one. And I didn't want to look at any more houses. But this house could not be closed upon. We could not close. And at length, I called some federal man and said, you know, I was just hoping that you could have discerned what kind of people we were, and we were honest people, and we don't know what's the matter. And I was hoping you could have just kind of discerned who we were. Now, that doesn't sound reasonable to somebody who thinks very factually, but that's what I said. I told you how I was brought up in a small town inside the family and all that. And so I appealed to the man, and he said, wait, discern. Where'd you hear that word? And I said, oh, well, it means to just kind of know something without being told explicitly. And he said, no. Where did you hear the word? And I said, so I started trying to tell him again what it meant.
In 1977.
77. And so he said, tell me where you heard the word. And I said, well, it's in the Bible. And he said, okay, that's all I wanted to hear. You're going to get your house. And he thought, we are both Christians, and I'm going to get you the house. He knew that the house was being held against us for being Black, and he broke the wall, and we got the house.
Oh, wow. Well, it's neat. I mean,
because of one word, and he was, you know, it's a funny thing to talk about how deeply does racism go? But the point that I would have to say in the story of my life is that I'm not angry, I'm not bitter. I know what it means to practice racism. I know what it means to be on both sides. And I know that there are good white people, and I know that there are good Black people, but there's goods and bads on both sides. And he was a good one. And he wanted to help, and he had the power to help. Now, it's one thing, we used to sit in our rooms, in our homes in Nigeria. You said, what was it like? We would sit in our, they called a living room a parlor. And we would sit in our parlor. I think it's a British language. A few words are kind of British. And we would talk about the limitations on imports. How you couldn't bring in steel, and you couldn't bring in this, and you couldn't bring in that, and what it was like to live in such a controlled economy where only rich people could bring in certain items. And I would ask my mom to send me things. But we didn't have the power. We had the intellect. We knew what was wrong. We knew what should be done, but we didn't have the power to do it. That's what the difference is.
Could we transition from there over to a few questions actually about COVID and how that's impacted your life and your family's life? I mean, you discussed briefly doing your curbside pickups when ordering. How has everything changed for you all? How has COVID affected your family?
Well, I told you that I have many grandchildren who are in college, and they're all staying at home online, working online.
Yes.
And my daughter, Lisa, who helped set up the Zoom call, lives in Austin, but she's been with us for maybe 5 months now, because it has something to do with COVID. She has some stresses about it.
Yes.
Yeah. And we stay indoors. We don't go to church. And I told you that we were strong Christians, but we don't go to church because I got 4 categories that I belong to that are considered high risk. One of them is I'm 79. And if you're over 65 or something like that, they say you're high risk. And I have diabetes, and I'm type A blood type. And what's the other one? Oh, I'm Black.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm Black.
Yeah, they did say the Black community
affected. So now our church is opening up, and they've been back for a couple weeks. And I teach children's church. One of the questions you had on your questionnaire interview guide was, how involved in community life are you? And do you believe you have a role? And then I would say, I have taught children's church since I was 12 years old. In Daddy's church, I taught children's church in Nigeria. I was the state director for a children's church at a church here. And I am a teacher at children's church where we go now, or where we have been going until COVID. Now, when they opened up again, I didn't go back. And yesterday I sent a message to the head of children's church telling him, he was saying, well, we're going to reopen children's church. He's trying to see how much of his staff he still has after all of this break. And I wrote back and told him about my 4 categories.
Yes.
And the best thing for somebody like me, obviously, is don't get it in the first place. Because once you get it, then they're going to say, if only you hadn't been in this category, we could have helped you more. But now look at what your situation is. So I just try to wear my mask.
Yes.
And don't go into heavily crowded places. I stay home almost all the time. Sometimes my husband and I sit out on the porch.
Yes, yes. Well, so even out at your home, like, so sitting on the porch now is the new outing for you all. Just going outside of your house?
Yeah, but we will go to place like Firehouse Subs. I mean, they have some good subs. It doesn't taste like Subway. I mean, these subs are for talk. And we go there every now and then. We'll go someplace. And Chick-fil-A, we'll go there for the drive-through.
Yes, yes.
But we don't go in.
Okay.
And we used to love going in, but now we don't go in.
So you all are practicing, like, adhering to all of the CDC's guidelines for the protocol to just avoid getting...
Only thing I'm not doing is I don't wipe down the mail.
Yes.
Anita wipes down her mail.
Really?
Yes, she does. I don't do that. That's a little bit more than what I want to do.
Well, I mean, I can understand. I know there were some fears instilled about that part too.
Yeah, yes. Because the mail carriers were getting it. And if it gets any worse, I might wipe down the mail. Yeah. I don't wipe down the bottle of milk when I bring.
Really?
No, but some people, I think some people do that when you like
sanitizing the items,
and you get that disinfectant cloth out and wipe the outside of that bottle out. And I have wiped down door handles before now.
Yes,
but I don't do the mail.
Well, that's great. That's really great to hear, though, that you are practicing with the masking and the social distancing.
Yes.
And that you all have had the opportunity for Lisa to return and you all just be able to support each other.
Yes.
During this time, because the isolation also, that's been a major thing that some people have shared with us, that
they're not isolating,
that they feel like they're isolated.
Oh, we're very isolated.
Practicing the guidelines, the safety guidelines, you kind of are, you're essentially isolated, but you have your daughter who's been able to relocate and come in with you all.
And that, that's a help, because at 79, we didn't have a lot of technology. I did have to use that for my grades here in Houston, but it was challenging. And Lisa is so good at it.
Oh,
I mean, she can
take some classes.
I think she can put a computer together.
Oh, wow.
But she's a help. And,
that's great.
And with my little grandson's homeschool.
Yes.
I didn't know how to send the videos to him. Then, he has to do a lot of stuff like that. Like make a video of this and make a video of that and send it in. And she can help me.
So Miss Nee, you're saying is he homeschooling, or is he doing the virtual digital school? Or is he homeschooled?
Well, I don't make up the curriculum.
Yes, you just help.
You pay for the curriculum.
Really?
Yeah, it's not a public school homeschool.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's homeschool.
It is. It's accredited.
Wow.
But if we finish too early, well, then he gets some grandma stuff.
Oh, so he does not catch a break. That's awesome, because this is going to be your third generation. You have to keep raising them up.
And he bargains with you too. Grandma, if I do this much more, can I get a break? If I do this much more, can I get a snack?
He's not 4, he's in the 4th grade.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, yes. They are, their brain is really churning. It's firing at that age. Yes.
But he's a sweetheart.
Oh, that's really great to hear. But and also to point out, with your grandson and you homeschooling him, that is remote, because he's in California and you're in Texas.
No. This grandson is Anita's son.
Oh, Anita. Okay.
He lives in Houston.
Okay,
They
women's
bring him
training.
over here every day and pick him up every day. And
Really?
yeah, but sometimes he'll spend the night with me.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, you guys are really doing well just as a family unit. It's
It's
sounds
good.
like COVID has been able to kind of reset how you say your mother and father was raising you all, Miss Neat.
And that doesn't mean that they didn't help teach us at home too, even though we were in school.
Yes.
You see,
Yes.
yeah, I believe in family.
That is
Yeah. Now, what are you doing with, you said you have 5 children. How are they doing? Are they going to online?
My kids could not go online because I lost when the state of Florida reopened brick and mortar, it made the family medical leave. I was no longer eligible because they said that the schools and the child care buildings had reopened. So I could not continue to use the 12 weeks of leave that they offered. And I was hopeful that I could have used the 12 weeks of leave to see how the first 9 weeks of school would go in brick and mortar, and if they were going to close them down or keep them open. Unfortunately, here in the state of Florida, they have reopened our state fully.
So your children are in public school?
They're in schools. They were part of the first stage of returning to schools. And so the classes, eight kids tops were in my kids' classes.
8 kids tops?
Yes, ma'am. In a 3rd grade, 1st grade, 10th grade, and 9th grade. And the 1st grade, I have twins, so they're both in 1st grade.
That's my style, 1st grade and 2nd grade.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, gosh.
So are you having an incidence of COVID?
So far, none of, at the elementary, they did have a case, but it was with someone who they said was not on campus frequently. Nothing in the high schools. But the unfortunate thing is the state has reopened fully. There are no safety protocols in place. There are no restrictions. There are no reduced capacities. Everything is open back max.
So now you have more than 8 students in the class?
Not yet, but the principals have already informed the parents of children who've been going brick and mortar to expect that the classroom ratio or count, we can't expect it to start going up. Yes, and that'll probably be where we notice, that'll be when we're going to be impacted more, because we already are having a lot of cases in the city of Gainesville. It's high cases. It's not under control here.
Houston is a hot spot.
Wow.
Oh, yes. And 900 people died yesterday, not from Houston maybe, but
in the state of Texas?
I think it was Texas. It could have been Houston.
Yes.
But, if you pass by Walmart to pick up your groceries at the curbside, the parking lots are full. People are going in. Yeah. And I say, just because people are going in doesn't mean they're not dying.
Thank you.
It doesn't mean they're not dying.
Somebody died and somebody else just replaced them and is taking that chance.
And some people not wearing masks either. Oh,
they fight about it. They're comparing it to slavery and Muslims.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. But it's a different time. You teach people to be angry and they'll be angry.
Yes, that's it, right? Because this is for their safety and everyone else's safety, public safety. And I don't see how that's not important to individuals over their personal comfort.
I don't understand it.
It's sad. It's sad
I
that,
don't understand
you
it.
know, because it creates such a high risk for these tragedies and to occur in different families. And then I know the part that with COVID was when they explained to us how one case can affect so many individuals.
Oh, yes.
Miss Me, thank you so much for sharing. This has been a great conversation to have with you, and
But it was
you.
nice visiting with you.
I know, and thank you for teaching me so much and just educating me on all of these things that are so amazing, and sharing just the awesomeness of your life. I mean, to go and you didn't back down when you were asked to turn down your scholarship. I mean, just hearing about your father, yes, ma'am, you know, and how he persevered all his life, and the loans. You know, I was really shocked because you said loans. Your father would get the bank loans for his.
I didn't say from the bank. There were loan sharks. You know, in Houston, I don't know what they have in your city, but here they have something called cash loans and
Yes,
cash
ma'am.
store, they call them, that kind of stuff. And I understand, I've never had one, and I don't get loans, and we're not in debt, but they have, I understand that you can take your car title in there, and if you default, well, they got your title, and
Wow.
And you went there because you were in trouble, and then they have exorbitant interest rates, so that they're just waiting for you to fall down so that they can close in on you, and Texas won't close them down.
Well, I think they were actually trying to pass some laws to make them stop. Just earlier, late in 2019 or earlier this year, they were actually just talking about those interest rates being illegal. But obviously, those companies are pretty powerful, or they have a lot of people advocating for them in the legislation. So I don't believe it passed, because they were actually saying the interest rates that they apply or they charge is actually illegal. It's illegal, and you're right. It just perpetuates people's debt. And
they're still open here.
Yes, ma'am.
They're still open here.
Yes, I mean, it's a lucrative business. Like you said, loan sharks. Okay, that explains why you said you didn't understand why your father continued to do it, because
they did.
I was like,
they did.
Miss Me, your father was able to get a loan, but okay, it wasn't right.
That wasn't well, I'm grown now, and I think that it was a bad thing. Yes. And you know what else they did in my town? Atchison, Kansas. They condemned the houses in Black Atchison, and then you had to get a loan to get another house. So if they condemn your house, then you have to
Oh, right. You have to go
give them business. Yeah.
More money. You're going to be paying out of pocket.
Exactly. And our streets weren't paved. In Black Atchison, we had dirt roads. I remember when they got paved, but until I was a certain age, we did have. I remember when we had horse and buggy. I'm old.
Really?
Yeah. And Mama bought milk from Mr. Lewis. And he had a horse. And then there was a rag man who would come by and want to buy rags. A black man, of course. And he had a horse and buggy for a while.
Now, rags, as in,
and he would sell ice cubes.
Rags as in tattered clothing?
Yeah.
Wow.
He would buy rags. I don't know what he did with them. He probably sold them to somebody who wanted to make paper. I don't know what he made. They did. Yeah. But there were two black men in Atchison, who had horse and buggy on dirt roads.
Ice cubes. What were the ice cubes?
Because you didn't have an electric refrigerator. So you had what you called an ice box. Oh, that's my time. And you put a cardboard out on a nail on the outside of your house, and one side says 25, 50, 75, 100, and that tells the iceman what size ice block you want.
Oh, really?
Whichever number is up. And then there was an ice plant where you could go and buy a big old block of ice downtown.
Wow.
But all of those things are gone now. I remember when TV came out, and we had a 7-inch screen when it first came out. And
a television?
Yeah. And you put an oil screen on top of your TV screen to magnify it, to magnify the picture.
Yes.
But when we were in Nigeria, my mother-in-law had television. We had television too, but she lived in a place where a lot of people didn't. We didn't live in the same neighborhood.
Yes.
We lived where expatriates lived. And she lived, yeah.
Yes.
And she told me, this is funny. Sad, funny, I don't know. Sometimes it gets in the middle. And she said that people would come to look in her window to see television because they didn't have television. And if she dared close her curtains, people would be angry and say, you don't want us to see too. You just don't want to be.
Wow, so they are regulating what she does in her home for their viewing pleasures. Oh, wow.
But she was a sweetheart, and she would leave them open for them.
Oh, wow, that is beautiful. She does amazing.
Yeah, it was different.
Wow.
My kids had a swing stand in the front yard, and neighbor kids would come and want to get on the swing. And one time, little kids can be your servants too, because their parents didn't have the money to feed them. And they give their kids out to somebody. My dad, I was going to tell you that too. I had that in my notes. My dad was given out as a servant when he was a child.
Oh.
Yeah, he was. And he said that to a white man, and the man beat him, and he ran away back home. And his mama told him he had to go back. Oh. And when he went back, the man beat him again, and daddy ran away again back to his home, and she didn't make him go back anymore.
So he was loaned out into servitude.
Yeah.
And this is after slavery, but the whites are still in the mindset that
it takes a long time to get rid of slavery. You get rid of it legally, but like I told you, my parents didn't vote because they didn't want to get, who's going to take care of all that big house full of kids? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's two ways to look at things. If you didn't live it, then you don't understand the second side.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what it is.
Yes, ma'am.
When I was teaching over here at Ridgecrest, right here in Houston, there was a Black custodian that I would always be friends with the custodians. Mm-hmm. I always would. And I said, well, you're going to vote? It was a presidential election coming up one time, because I taught for, 30 years or more. Yes. And she said, oh, no, I don't vote, because they're going to put in whoever they want to put in anyhow. And I was shocked. And I came home and told my husband, do you know what she said? She said they're going to put in whoever they want. And I thought, maybe I've already seen that now. I might have seen that in 2016. I don't know what I saw in 2016. Right. But it's a different time, because when she said that, that would have been 20 years ago. And
wow, that's still shocking. In the 2000s?
No. Well, that doesn't mean she was right. It means that even when she had the right to vote, she didn't use it because she didn't trust it. It takes a long time to get people's minds cleaned up.
Yes, ma'am.
It does. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's what I'm trying to say. But I will say this part, and that is that there is God. And we worry about being Americans. And I love America. And I would not want to live in another place over this one. But before I'm an American, I'm a Christian. Yes. So don't get to the point where you feel like the bottom is dropped out and there's no hope. Of course there is. God is still God. And things will only go as far as he lets them. The other thing you have to remember, counter to that, is that some people are martyrs and they go to heaven as martyrs. And I might be one of them.
Yes, ma'am.
But God is still God. And Trump is not, I didn't say that. The leaders of the country are not in absolute control, and their power is only what is allowed them. And if you don't see the way out, that doesn't mean there's no way out.
Miss Nee, I have a question for you. You know, you just acknowledged the U.S. being the best country where you would prefer your preferable country to live in. This is a free state currently. Now, why are you concerned with vocalizing and stating names that are of public domain?
Because it's not really free.
Okay. I wanted to, yes, ma'am.
It's not really free. We are told that. You were told you had the right to vote, but you were going to get killed, or your house was going to get burned down. Yes, and the Ku Klux Klan is good people too. And they might be good sometimes, and they might be bad sometimes, the same person. But if you're going to be bad to a certain degree, then maybe you're not that good. Then I don't trust your goodness. My daddy used to say, yes, God forgives us when we do wrong, but there's some things you should never do. That's what Daddy would say. Some things you should never do. And that's what we say here in the house. But there's some things you should never do.
Yes.
And don't dare God. Don't try to tempt God and tell God, you know, if I kill my grandma, you're going to forgive me. Well, then when your heart is bad, then that's another thing altogether, when you got a bad heart.
Yes, ma'am.
But you're not that free. You can get anything tapped, and you don't want to say everything on Facebook.
Yes,
because the police can go in there, and I'm not a criminal, and I don't have anything to hide from them. But I got sense enough to know that somebody could look at it.
Yes,
and you're supposed to have sense enough to know that somebody can look at almost anything you do, and they pay you back. Breonna Taylor got killed because I think she had a white boyfriend or a white spouse or something. No, and
her ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, the ex.
Yes, ma'am.
And also, I think she said something about not liking Trump. And I think they paid her back by killing her. And they came into her house without a warrant and
didn't make themselves known.
Oh, no. That one is too classic. It's too classic to talk about.
That's the robbery. People think.
And then her boyfriend was in the house, and the boyfriend was protesting. Well, I mean, how are you going to watch him shooting the girl down? And then they said he was resisting arrest and arrested him.
Yes, ma'am.
Resisting what? I mean, now you tell me if it's free or not. We hope it's free, and we have some freedoms, at least for a while. But we don't know.
So it's interesting how you say, you just mentioned earlier, it takes some time to relearn individuals and help them break out of, you know, these things that have been embedded. But it's so funny because it's essentially like I'm the opposite, and I have these ideas and notions in my mind that we've made the country has progressed so much that we are free, you know, but in reality, I am not looking at the other side that you are aware of.
Oh,
yes, ma'am. Right. So I'm not. Oh, yeah. Yes, ma'am. That's very interesting how you just explained that to me, because I'm looking at.
Don't go to Conroe with your freedom. Don't take your freedom to Conroe. But
that's so scary.
Yeah. So
well, Miss Neat, thank you so much again. This has been such a pleasure. And, you know, I guess now I'll just make up an excuse like to send you a Zoom and we can just talk sometime.
Yeah, because we could have been friends. Yeah. All right, then.
So knowledgeable. I just love to hear the wisdom.
Well, you're very nice. You're very nice. And I hope things will all start coming together with all this COVID mess. Ooh. And I think it will. I don't think that this is going to be permanent. All right. Well, it's so good to talk to you, and God bless you.
Oh, thank you, Miss Neat. Will you just extend my appreciation to your daughters
I
and
will.
Mr. Michael too for letting me take up your time?
All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you as well. And y'all stay safe.
And you
blessed.
too.
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.